Very good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a long, it's a full house. Really excited for that. Thank you. We often talk about the positives of the industry, the changing consumer behavior and more. But in all honesty, मेरे जैसे consumer जो बहुत सारी चीज़ online भी जाते हैं, offline भी जाते हैं, जहाँ पे discount मिलता है वहाँ से खरीद लेंगे, मिंत्रा से मंगवा के रिटर्न भी कर देंगे, D2C से मंगवाए तो कंप्लेन करेंगे कि इनके रिटर्न्स ओन अच्छे नहीं हैं. We put a lot of pressure on what goes in the back end. When we were crafting this particular panel discussion, that was the idea. Can we get into your brains and understand what happens in the back end? What is the chaos, right? I'm going to divide my conversation into two bits. One, in your respective categories, where is this chaos hitting? And second, in response to that, how are you adapting? How are you responding, right? I'll start with you, Avinash. Where is the biggest chaos today in your category? Is it managing wastage? Is it maintaining a consistent quality? Or is it predicting demand altogether?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think overall, if I talk about all three are very important for operational challenges, and these all three plays a very important role in all the operation challenges. But if I have to choose one, I think predicting demand is one of the most challenging thing in the operation what we are facing, because in premium retail, what we see, the customer is very different as compared to the mass retail. They are more demanding. They want something new always. So I think in those type of scenario, they want experience. So predicting demand in a premium food retail, I think is the most challenging task what we have seen in our stores. Now, I just want to tell some of the 4 or 5 points which we normally face on a regular basis on when we go for a demand forecasting. So first, what we see that customer behavior is very volatile. And they normally see what are the new trends going on. On that basis, they decide they're buying. What is the social media influencing them for their buying behavior, and what are the new experience which you are building that also showcase their entire overall buying behavior. And a typical example, if I have to give, there's a brand which we launched like 8 months back called Prime Hydration Drink, which was by, like a founder was Logan Paul and KSI. I think that is, they have created a big hype. They have come to India, they've created a big hype, and the sales has gone like big time. So we also ordered on that basis, forecasting that this is the way the trend will happen. And I think after 6 months, the trend has gone totally haywire. So because the type of footfall, the type of range what we have got at that point of time, the sales, and after 6 months, the trend has totally gone down. So these are the how the customer behavior is volatile at the immediately it shoot up, and the second thing is goes down. Same thing happened with one other brand, Mr. Beast Chocolate. They have also created a big hype like 8 months back, and again after 6 months we have seen the same thing. The traction has gone down. We are hardly selling 50% of the normal stock which we were selling like 6 months back. So that is how one important thing which is really the entire demand forecasting is going haywire in the premium food retail. Second is what if you compare with mass retail, the SKU range assortment play in the premium is very important. Because normally you have to maintain something like 8 to 10,000 SKU assortment, because it is not that you maintain that top 80% of the assortment and because customer want change, customer want something new happening. And we are not getting that historical data, something which is there like launched 6 months. So how you go for the ordering of these 6 months newly launched product, and accordingly we have to decide the forecasting on that. So the second thing is like the SKU range assortment is big thing in the premium grocery. Now, third thing, if I have to say, is fresh. Now, fresh overall, if I talk about premium retail, our freshness composition is like 30 to 40% of the business is coming from fresh. Now, to maintain fresh, like fresh bakery, fresh dairy, FNV, the entire thing is very, very thin line. Like if you have to do more ordering, automatically it goes into wastage. If you do limited ordering, then the customer is like a dissatisfied customer, and then they leave that store. So I think it's a very thin balance of maintaining a proper optimum stock level at a fresh category. Now, fourth, what we have seen that premium customers are more demanding. They always see that availability. They always want availability to be at 100%. For example, like if you go to any mass retail or any like a value retail store, if there is one brand which is not available, the customer easily shift to the other brand. But when we have seen in our case that if something like truffle cheese or something like shiitake mushroom is not there, customers shift the entire store. So it's very difficult to maintain the entire assortment in such a scenario and the forecasting. So I think that is one other big challenge which we normally face. And the last one which I would like to highlight, that we are also using AI. Now, AI for the demand forecasting is well, everybody is using AI for the demand forecasting, but how to deal with emotions of the customer. So I think that is where the AI also struggle with the emotions of the customer. If there is some influencer giving something, some hype, then the entire AI ordering, which normally go with the backward data, more of promotion. So overall, entire haywire ordering has gone up. And so I think premium customer buying is more on stories, more on new thing, what is coming up. So I think that is where the struggle of AI ordering versus our premium buying shopping, that is what we have seen. So if I talk about earlier scenario where we have seen forecasting is just a mathematical problem earlier. In a new scenario, what we have seen, it is not only mathematical, it is like a data, geopolitical, climatic, and behavioral problem. So I think that is where we have seen, it's like a new age scenario. We have seen this is one of the biggest chaos what we are facing in our category. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Avinash, for sharing those inputs. I think very pointed, some very, very important threads. Thank you. Abhishek, I'll come to you. You know, you operate a premium global brand. Avinash shared a view on the premium segment from the grocery aspect, but from the apparel aspect, you can't afford to, you know, operate at discounting. That would impact your brand equity, right? So is that a bigger challenge? Is it managing your brand equity or managing slowing demand? Because ideally you win at value, not volumes. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Abhishek. I am representing brand Lacoste here. So in our category, thankfully, the word chaos is a very harsh word, I would say. It's not the situation. Fortunately, the demand in this category per se, premium category, is improving. Be it because of the reason, because our customers are now well-traveled, well-informed, and because of the penetration of internet, you can think and you can talk about any brand, anything, too much. So they are well-informed. So far in our category, I would say the demand is somewhat positive. Now, volume for sure is something that you need to understand as how you generate volume, because that is where you actually take the business to the next level. But a brand like us, which has more than 90+ year of legacy, as in customer doesn't only buy product, they buy your story, they buy your experience, they buy everything along with that. And this is where discounting, which can be a short-term strategy to increase your top line, may not be the bottom line, cannot help in a long-term period. It can be a short-term strategy where you can do it and you cannot do it. So in our category, one thing which we can say, there is a demand already there in the market. Reason can be a number of reasons. Whether you can capture those demand and convert that, for that there are multiple ways to do it, and we are doing it. At this stage, the chaos which we are facing in our category is the availability of premium retail space within India. And let me just also give you an insight that it is not only Delhi, Mumbai which is consuming brands. It has gone far beyond now. Even tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities are now consuming premium products in a big way. Even they are very informed. But when we actually try to move out of metro to see whether we have more premium spaces available or not, then there's very limited availability. I think that is one chaos. India has a lot of opportunity which we can look into and should address that. That's what my understanding.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Abhishek. Darshan, your view, you operate at the ethnic wear segment. The demand is mostly seasonal, right? So is the unpredictability of demand a bigger challenge for you right now? What sort of pressure does that put on inventory planning? Or as Abhishek said, this availability of retail spaces or premium retail spaces, is that also a challenge that you are facing?
Right. Very good morning, and more importantly, clearly I'm the only ethnic wear guy. Looking at me, dressed amongst all of you. So I represent the sari community of India, more importantly. And I truly feel that, we keep asking the question, and we were just discussing a little while ago. People are still challenging the narrative कि साड़ियाँ लोग नहीं पहनते. Although I'm very upset to see the few women here not wearing saris, which will be my request for the next time around. But just to give perspective, because I sort of consider myself as a strong advocate of the sector, saris is an 80,000 crore market, right? An 80,000 crore market growing at a CAGR of almost 12%. So to put perspective, we understand 1 crore, 2 crores because we are buying cars and flats and all of that at that value. 80,000 crore means today the eyewear sector is at 60,000. We are at 80,000. The snack business, the salted snack business, for which all investors are going crazy, it's 60,000 crores. We are at 80,000 crores. So the narrative of saris is very different, A. Chaos for us is a very, I completely second you. It's a harsh word. I think it's an operating system. We thrive in chaos, so we operate around chaos. The good or the bad thing is we are very festival driven, rightfully so. 60% of women buying ethnic wear or saris are buying for an occasion purpose, which largely is around festivals. Now, I come from Bengal and I'm a Calcutta boy, and we say there are 13 festivals in 12 months. So when you talk about words like demand, we have demand through the year for different reasons. And with our pan-India presence, we've got 64 stores across 13 states. Now there's a different festival happening in a different state, in a different month, and which becomes a major peak season. So Durga Puja, if it shifts from 1 month in Calcutta to the other month, my L2L ratios go completely haywire. So herein, it's adjusting yourself prima facie around that chaos. To build around that is the most important. And now what we realize with demand, to be honest, when you talk about demand, the first fundamental portion is what are you looking at? Are you looking at scale? If you're running something that I call very, very interestingly, it's called Ram Babu Ka Dukaan. If you're having one setup where Ram Babu is sitting selling saris or selling his amazing t-shirts, for example, it's a different chaos, it's a different demand. Wherein you're doing a scaled structure, so how are you standardizing? The moment you start standardizing things, I think the narrative fully changes. Because then you, of course, get a little bit of killing in terms of letting go of things. Imagine, say for example, in your sector, you would have one t-shirt and you'll have 10,000 SKUs of that t-shirt. For saris, we are completely driven by different SKUs. Our problem is not around how much of demand is there. Our problem is that people are used to walking into a store with 10,000 saris, expectation of 10,000 saris. How can you make the customer buy from 2,000 saris? Our problem is shallow assortment. So that becomes the biggest challenge for us. And I strongly feel, I think, to build systems around it, to predict by standardization is the way for the future. And particularly for ethnic wear, where I think a larger part of our narrative is around having the right product at the right place at the right time. So in his case, he's talking about perishable goods. For me, it's perishable season. So the moment Diwali goes or Durga Puja goes, it doesn't matter if my goods have come in late, the same good goes away. So that becomes our challenge.
I think very interesting. Thank you so much for that, Darshan. Dheeraj, I'll come to you. You're a fast-growing D2C luggage brand. Personally for you, what has been the hardest to manage? Is it inventory planning, supply chain timelines, working capital? Can you share some inputs on that?
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Pallavi. I'd just like to start by saying I was hearing my previous fellows. I think everybody is talking about demand being there, okay? And I think that's a testimony of the India consumer story, okay? In our space also, I represent Uppercase. We are a new age travel luggage brand. We build sustainable luggages, okay? So like people eat, sleep, people travel. Okay, so when it comes to chaos, Pallavi, to your point, I think my fellow colleague also referred to it. Chaos is how we thrive. And as a young startup, if there are weeks, if there are days when things are less chaotic, I think there is something wrong in that day, in that week. More specifically, I think the subject of gross margin, inventory, and demand. Okay. Or working capital and demand. I think this is like the holy trifecta. I'm sure all people sitting in the audience. But I think in our experience, what we've seen is it changes as per the stage of business. We are in early stage. There are two things which we focus on very, very aggressively. Since we are in the process of building a new consumer brand. So I think gross margin is something which we track very, very closely. It's very dear to our heart. And I think it's a lead matrix for us to ascertain what is the brand love. What is the consumer feedback? Is the brand able to command a certain price premium, a certain gross margin? So it's an indicator of brand love. So gross margin is one. However, on the operating side, we of course look at working capital because we are a young startup, and I think managing the payable receivable becomes extremely important. So the operating matrix definitely is working capital. However, I think at this stage of business, we focus aggressively on maintaining the gross margins, which is a surrogate of measuring brand love and consumer love.
I think very rightly put. Thank you so much, Dheeraj. Amit, just building on that for you, Dheeraj spoke about the holy trifecta. You operate at scale across categories. Where does the chaos come for you? How do you manage that? How do you manage that trifecta with especially the operating costs and the supply complexity that comes into the picture?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Now, there are different views on chaos that we've heard till now. I mean, so undoubtedly, we also see chaos as an opportunity because in that period of chaos, it also gives an opportunity for you to gain market share. Right? Depends on how prepared you are. Right? For example, apart from the retail space and other stuff, which is a concern, but I would want to put a point on climate change. Right? So, for example, weather forecasting plays a huge role in our business. Right? So, if the temperature goes up by 2 degrees, consumption of beverages goes up by 10%, right? If the winter onsets happen 15 days before, consumption of hard winter goes up, right? If monsoons come before, our ice cream business suffers, right? Because then people stop consuming ice creams, right? So we very strategically forecast different levers that may impact consumer shopping behavior. We prepare ourselves for that, and that reflects in our demand forecasting, right? Demand forecasting is one piece of it, but operationally managing that demand is another piece, right? So I would say that your ability to foresee the levers that may impact the demand forecasting, right, and taking appropriate action way ahead of time is what allows us to thrive in chaos, correct? So, I mean, fundamentally speaking, we've built robust models, which helps us predict what is to happen in next summer, right? What is to happen in next winters. We align our supplies accordingly, and we leverage technology beautifully, correct? So, I mean, from a 90 days lead time in retail, how can you reduce it to around 30 days lead time, right? And that gives you flexibility to meet that consumer demand, correct? So, the summary of all of this is that, I mean, the transition of a butterfly effect, which used to happen before, it used to take few years for a particular phenomena to manifest in consumer demand, has reduced, right? In 15 days, you get a reaction. But the beauty is, how do you forecast it, and how do you take corrective action, right? So that's how we survive.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Amit. Mustafa, coming to you, we have heard varied and some very insightful inputs here. In your view, across these categories, grocery, fashion, D2C, ethnic, premium, which segment do you think faces the most and the highest operational stress at this moment, and why?
So thanks, Pallavi. So I think the one which faces maximum stress out of all these 5 categories is the D2C one. Today, the cost of acquisition of a customer is just increasing. It's gone 30% up than what it was 3 years back. After that, you have challenges retaining a customer. It's not easy to retain customers. You acquire a customer, you don't make actually, forget making margins, you lose money when you acquire a customer. So retaining them afterwards, it becomes another challenge. Plus, a lot of long inventory turnover which you have, maintaining long inventory cycles. If you go to see for startups, it's a great challenge getting fundings also. Earlier, the fundings were much easier. I think again in the last 3 years, just some numbers which I recollect, it's reduced by almost 50%. So that becomes a challenge. I think that's the most stressful. Secondly, I think second area which is there is grocery or fresh as we call it. That's a second area because the supply chain is quite unorganized. That poses its own challenges in that sense. It's a low margin business. So that gives another stress dealing with perishable products, shrinkage, which increases the stress. And then I would put fashion and lifestyle, premium, as well as ethnic in one bucket, where I think, in my view, the stress is corrective. It's not structural, which is there in the other cases.
And I think talking about so much of problems and stress has given me a little anxiety. How do you guys manage it? I'll come to that question only. Avinash, Mustafa also highlighted some challenges in the grocery sector. You also shared some very targeted points. Give us a view on, especially walking into FY27 now, what is the one, operational lever that you are personally focusing on that would help you to at least deal with one of the major, chaos or one of the major problems that hits the system?
I think what is our operational strength, what we have is to maintain a wider supplier network. I think that is where, because in any premium grocery, like I mentioned earlier, range building is very important. So overall, we are working very efficiently with something like 500 partners across India, and our stores are there in metro and non-metro cities. And in fact, non-metro cities, we have seen a larger focus on that because we have seen a large traction in non-metro cities. So I think wider range of supplier and giving them like a strong payment terms so that we are a preferred partner for them. So I think that is where we have seen, like if you pay them on time and if you focus on them, on their profitability also, because it's not only retailer profitability, it's about the partner profitability also. So I think that is where we are as a brand. We normally follow that ethics of giving payment on time, and that is where we have seen we are the partner. For any of the brand partner, we are the most preferred partner for us, and that is what help us in improving the availability. The second most thing is the efficiently managing supply chain. So I think that is where, because fresh, as I mentioned, our focus is more on fresh. So like we have seen that scaling a retail square feet is very easy, but to scale a freshness with premium experience, I think that is the biggest, toughest task. So I think with our strong supply chain management, AI ordering, I think that is where is our core strength in managing the freshness with the scalability option is also there. So we are scaling fresh with the proper, whatever you have seen in Mumbai, same thing you will see in Jamshedpur or in any other city. That is how our entire supply chain fresh network is there end to end. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Avinash. I'll come to you, Abhishek. You highlighted the lack of premium real estate. While of course the search for that is on, we spoke at length yesterday about the rise of new malls. But I'm sure your team must have figured out some way while, a store gets ready, you find the right space. How do you reach the customer without diluting your brand value?
Sure, thank you. So first of all, let me just say about this. I'm thankful to the women in this room for wearing Western wear as a category, because I operate that as a category. He's already 80,000 crores, so he doesn't need that support. So please continue to support women lifestyle as a category, Western wear category. That's one. Second, of course, as in, please understand, as in, what is more important in this whole thing when you really don't have the quality premium space available, as in how you reach it. One thing which we can control is the pricing power that we have, because we have a legacy, we can tell about story, we have the quality product, we can give you the environment that you want. But that is all when you actually reach to the space which is available in your city and so on and so forth. But what is now changing is demand has actually gone to within the country. To reach out, there are two possibilities to that. One is e-commerce, which is a fantastic channel, and let me just tell you that our logistics guys have done amazing work in this country. Now from days to hours to minute is what we see. And I think this trend of delivering things into minute will continue, not only be in metro, it will percolate down and it will reach to every city, because customers are also getting used to of all these. Believe me, I haven't been to any grocery store in the last 10 months because everything is done by these 10-minute delivery guys. So that's one which is happening very good. Second is how we are actually leveraging the current network. So omni-channel is going to be the future of leveraging your current network through which you can reach out to customer in shortest possible time within that city And you can also optimize your available inventory within your own network. If in case I'm able to sell whatever inventory is available to our offline customers and customers are not coming, the same inventory is available to online customer, it means my sell-throughs are improving for that particular. And full price sell-through is like achieving the best thing in our industry, where you actually don't have depth, and you don't want to keep the depth as well. Freshness is another thing that we need to keep. We work on seasonal basis, so we have to keep refreshing ourselves. So two things that I will highlight here. A is omni-channel. B, pushing more and more to our e-commerce channel to reach out to end customer is how we are organizing ourselves.
One quick follow-up. You spoke about delivery in minutes, but does that category, could that category become a major channel for a premium brand like you?
If you ask me, as in for a very long period of time, I am also not a supporter of delivering fashion in 10 minutes. But at the end of the day, it is customer who decides what is that he wants. And believe me, I personally used it for myself. I wanted to go to a shadi. I was looking for a yellow kurta which I did not have. I opened and I got it in 30 minutes from one of the delivery partners. So these are one-off cases, but I think as a customer, I'm getting used to this service. So if you will demand, I don't have a choice. I have to follow you. You are the one who's deciding the trend.
Fair point, fair point. Thank you so much. Darshan, I'll come to you. You know, you spoke about seasonality also. For wedding season, even if your latest style comes a week late, it could lead to unsold inventory, it could lead to dead inventory. How do you manage assortment? Any insight on what is the focus, for the upcoming seasons to sort of manage that so that the losses are minimum?
Right. First of all, just to respond and take your permission, Pallavi, on that, I think next time around 2027, you're getting 2 goodie bags. One a t-shirt and one a sari for the women, and then the women will decide. The audience will decide who's looking more beautiful. So I had to give that shout out back.
Everyone here is a witness. I'm getting 2 goodie bags. Please make it a point, guys. Yeah.
More importantly, coming to unsold inventory, and so what is very interesting with ethnic wear, Mustafa mentioned the word inventory turn and inventory days rather. Ethnic wear, you don't measure stuff in days. A Banarasi sari today or a Kanjivaram sari or a Tasar sari does not evolve every day. So we measure our inventory in terms of years, to be honest. So the concept of we don't have any slow moving or aged inventory. For us, yes, there are defective inventory under the lights of whatever a particular sari has faded. So in that particular case, we use some very interesting sustainable techniques. So we launched a program called Save a Sari, wherein, Pallavi, we actually educated our customers saying, hey, this particular sari lost a knot or two, but this has been made by this particular karigar from this particular cluster, and there's a lot of effort that's been put around, there's money that has been invested, and we've given a 30% discount, for example, on the defective product. On the first month, we sold 2,000 pieces of this under our SAS campaign, which is called Save a Sari. So herein you use innovative tools, you try and build around that, and more importantly, when you use the word omni-channel, so use newer technology. So the good thing is, or the bad thing is that, we are not the Amazons and the Reliances of the world. So we don't have 10,000 crores stashed up to blow. So when you don't have that kind of money, you start measuring everything in a very different perspective. So what we've done in our Gorakhpur store, for example, is we're the first ones who has done an endless aisle in terms of you walk into a Gorakhpur store, you now can access the store catalogs of every other store, 64 other stores in 58 cities, and a customer today can buy from any other store looking at the product sitting in one store, and you basically understand what you're buying. Along with that, to have a 2-hour guaranteed same 2-hour delivery in your city, that for saris is a first. Now the biggest challenge in our category primarily is that it's not ready to wear really. You buy a sari, you want a sari today, you want a kurta, you get a kurta in 30 minutes, you put it on, you move on. But with a sari, you need blouse, you need a petticoat. Where do you do that? People don't have time to drape a sari. So we've done something super, super innovative where we've done pre-stitched saris, pre-draped saris, ready-to-wear blouses. So everything together you buy, and you've made a category which traditionally, You buy a product, it takes you 5 days for the product to get ready. We've just cut down on the marination time, and now it gets done in 30 minutes. So you use these very innovative ways. I strongly believe we don't have any long inventory days. Today, like I said, if you miss a Diwali season, it's not that the same product is not going to sell next Diwali or the same product. So we are not evolving super fast, which makes us supremely comfortable. And particularly, we are spoiled in saris for two reasons. We are size agnostic, right? So we don't care about sizes at all. So that becomes so much easier for us. We are not fighting on cut sizes. We've got one simple thing. So I think we are in the most beautiful and the best business to be. And more importantly, there's huge impact, right? We are connected to 15,000 artisans, right? To connect and to actually make a person buy a sari, and with that purchase, you're sending someone's child to a school. That's a huge give back that we face in retail, and that's satisfying.
I'm sure. Must be. Thank you so much. And that 30-minute sari thing with, the blouse and everything, that's a lifesaver. That's actually very helpful. Thank you for that. Dheeraj, I'll come to you. Your view on offline expansion. I was in Karol Bagh a few days ago, and I saw, an uppercase store, right, on the high street, right? That made me think, for a young D2C brand, ideally the first choice is always opening in, the premium malls or in a good mall. Why high street? What is your strategy for offline expansion, and are you cautious or are you aggressive?
Yeah, I think it's a $1 million question and there's no right or wrong answer. What I'll do is I'll quickly share our journey of the last 3 years. So I think we started as a D2C brand. We listed on all the marketplaces. And the idea was to really listen to the customer. Okay, till date, we use online as a listening engine, which is to gather consumer feedback, gather the trends, what's working well, what's not working well. Where are the returns happening? What color palette? What feature set is the customer more liking? Basis that, we have tried to sharpen our proposition. For example, as a young brand, we started with a couple of propositions. Okay, there were some category codes, hygiene, like for a luggage brand. You got to have durability. You got to be available, accessible at a certain price point. You got to have a certain minimum assortment. However, there were also certain brand modes which we layered on top of that. Them being, we were fully made in India. We are fully made in India. Number two, we are made out of sustainable material. Number three, we believe that, we are taking Indian fashion to a global audience. Now, with these 5-6 hypotheses, we launched a couple of products online. And basis the consumer feedback, there were three things which stuck from a brand perspective. Number one was consumer who was buying us for better designs and high fashion. Number two, they were buying us for quality. Number three, they were buying us for accessibility. And basis that listening engine, basis that feedback, we doubled down and launched various other offline channels. And offline also, while we may sum it up, I think offline is a large footprint. I mean, when we say offline, there is a distribution, there is a direct dealer, there is a B2B business, there is, of course, EBO stores, and there is, of course, a huge set of hyper chains. So in the last 3 years, I would say every 6 months, we have entered new channel. As we speak, to your point, yes, we operate 35 retail stores. And basis the online feedback, we have kept on sharpening our proposition. For example, basis these 3 pillars, we were the first Indian brand to actually win an Oscar of design. Okay, this is an award called Red Dot Award, which happens in Germany. Some of my colleagues may know it. When we got that affiliation or recognition, we double-clicked on that in all our offline channels in terms of point of sale communication. Number two, we got an invitation on Paris Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week. So basis those properties and assets, we double-clicked on some of those property in all our offline communication. So just to wrap it up, I think we would continue to operate in a multi-channel environment, continue to use the online listening engine because it's democratized. There is, you are quickly able to reach the customer, get a real-time feedback, and basis that we will continue to invest in various offline channels, and it is working well for us.
Interesting. Thank you so much for that, Dheeraj. Amit, I'll come to you again. The kind of scale at which the brand operates. I think discipline becomes the most important, characteristic for you. Where have you had to become ruthless, in all honesty? Is it execution? Is it store productivity, bottom line? Give us a peek into your strategy there.
So, I mean, there's no straight answer to that. It depends on the category that you operate, right? I mean, in a low margin perishable category like ice cream, like food and beverages, you have to have Hawkeye focus on the unit economics, right? On how do you churn out inventory faster? How do you manage your working capital, correct? But in high aspiration, high price point fashion business, you go robust on your store selection, correct? Picking up on that, typically when the expectation is to gain market share, you may rely on certain data which are available in the market, right? Which is who is your next door neighbor from a retail point of view, what is the productivity they are doing, so on and so forth. But that will lead you to a certain value, correct? But when you're hungry for growth, you have to create market, right? I mean, we expand in territories wherein retail hasn't evolved yet, correct? And how do you take decisions there, right? Because opening in a operating mall which is doing well is one thing, but probably creating a market in a location wherein retail penetration is limited is another, correct? So that is where we leverage technology to the T, right? We've got a very complicated formula that to a certain extent forecasts the potential of that city, or for that matter, that pin code, right? Per capita income, demography, percentage of premium class, so on and so forth. And that gives us a small index, that out of 10, it is 8 or 9. And when we open a store there, we realize that 95% we are able to succeed, correct? And eventually what happens is you go there, you take that bud, you open a store there, and then you see that mushroom effect starts. Then there is a next door neighbor that comes in, then the entire retail market develops, correct? So I think having that adaptability to use the right lever to the right business is what we focus on, correct? So, I mean, from a low margin business, as I said, operational efficiency. In a fashion business, we focus primarily on location selection.
Thank you, Amit. I think very pointed. Mustafa, I'll come to you based on your view of the industry and also your work with multiple, retailers across categories. What do you think separates a retailer that is scaling profitably to those who struggle? Is it better inventory control that they have? Is it capital discipline, or is it operational efficiency?
So see, Pallavi, this again depends from segment to segment, business to business, category to category. But I think overall retail, if you go to see all categories together, I think inventory turnover is a key to ensure profitability. Because you have an average inventory turnover for a retail is about 45 to 90 days. It can differ from again business to business, groceries 15 to 20 days, fashion and lifestyle is higher, ethnic is again seasonal. But 45 to 90 days, typically if they maintain inventory, they are profitable. 90 to 120 days also, retailers have been profitable by managing the discounts properly. But anything above 120 days, it lands you in a problem. And at that point of time, you have your capital discipline, which becomes a shock absorber in my view, because it prevents any rapid collapse for you. So capital discipline is also important, but inventory is prima facie the main one. And you also have operating efficiency, which, if you have a good framework, you're operating in the right way, it helps you to, it's like a multiplier. It accelerates you more from shifting you from the challenging situation to a normal situation much faster. So it's all three which are relevant, but if I've given to put a finger on something, it would be inventory.
Excellent. I think, again, very pointed. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for these inputs. I have a minute on the clock. Is there any question we want from the audience? Okay, no questions. I think we've enlightened everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. And thank you for being a patient audience.